hi to everyone. So nice that you're all here and that you could make it after work or whatever you did before to this event. So an official welcome to Dear Future, a dialogue on sustainable urbanism in partnership with All Things Urban and the New European Bauhaus. My name is Caroline Steffen and I'm a trained architect and the founder of Architektur kollektiv. The New European Bauhaus Initiative connects the European Green Deal to our daily lives and living spaces. It calls on all Europeans to imagine and build together a sustainable and inclusive future that is beautiful for our eyes, minds, and soul. So the New European Bauhaus was initiated by the President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, in September 2019, and aims at supporting the European Green Deal through innovative ideas and concepts within the framework of an interdisciplinary and participatory process. The New European Bauhaus follows values of sustainability, aesthetics, and inclusivity, as we do with this event today as well.
Yeah, and of course we can't go into depth tonight, but we want to show innovative approaches and ideas for dealing with these topics. We have invited 3 fantastic speakers who have dealt with one of these topics in some way and will give us an insight into their work, their thoughts, and their ideas.
The event will close with a breakout session where you can connect to other people and get to know new people maybe. And yes, as I mentioned before, we have a second host to this event, which is All Things Urban. And with this, I pass the word to Anastasia.
And we wanted to start with the aesthetic part of the new European Bauhaus approach. And that's why I would like to give a floor to Mirko Andolina. I actually had the pleasure to work with Mirko like almost, I guess, 7 years ago.
Yes.
When I first arrived to Berlin, we worked together in the same.
Sounds quite a lot, but it's
Sounds
nice.
a lot, and a lot has happened since then.
Okay, first of all, thank you to Anastasia and Architektur Collective to invite us to this nice and interesting event. So I'm Mirko Andolina, together with Julia, and co-founder of Fabulism. We are a small office of landscape architecture. Now, what is nature? It's an interesting word. It's really difficult to define it, but it's the most undiscussed element that we have to deal during this our age. In the beginning, nature from this paint was seen as kind of the outdoor, the unknown, the space that it was outside of the city. The city was really well defined. There were like wall of protection. There was the inside of the city, the outdoor of the city. So the nature was something that needs to be discovered, needs to be, it's dangerous. There was like element, animals, system that there was like not controlled from the human. But what is how we arrive today to talk and to see this kind of images? Not right now is passing through. We are passing from the moment that the nature was something else to try to integrate nature inside our built environment, inside the facade of the building, as a kind of maquillage, a kind of way of transform the nature as a kind of decorative element. And is it this one, nature in the contemporary city? And one that I think it's fitting with the talk of today was the area, an urban area. In particular, we choose like the Kreuzberg neighborhood, that for us was really quite interesting because of its level of mixing, its level of undefinition of particular space, but also for the level of how can I say, undefined shape of the neighborhood. So it's really an interesting area, not only in terms of built environment, but also from the social point of view. And in order to transform the area, we try to develop a kind of toolbox of different action that they were then apply all over the city. This one is the strategic diagrams that basically try to solve and try to answer to the different issues. So the first one is the creation of a blue-green infrastructure in order to enhance, in order to protect and enhance the already existing green park, green system inside the neighborhood, but also to try to focus the redevelopment, the redevelopment of the city on the water issue. The second one is try to understand how to densify the neighborhood, because of course, as the city of Berlin is growing in terms of population. And the last one, it's more to try to envisioning the neighborhood as a car-free area where there are no cars, but the people can move freely from the different part of the area using slow mobility, using the slow mobility infrastructure, even because of the dimension of this area, that it's has a radius of only 1 kilometer. The second project is actually a project that is running right now. We will start the construction the next month, I would say. It's called Radbahn-Tesfeld. Radbahn-Tesfeld is an idea that it's coming from a local association that proposed to the city to transform the space under the viaduct of the U1, that is the oldest viaduct of the U-Bahn in Berlin, that it's crossing all over the south of the neighborhood. So it's starting from more or less Warschauer Strasse here in the east, and is arriving more or less around Schöneberg. So it's a kind of big infrastructure that currently, big infrastructure, really important from historical point of view. And basically we arrived to now design the Tesfeld, that it's these 200 meters that are connecting two different cross. And of course, the first action is removing the space for the car, because we think for the sustainability of the future, the first action should be to decrease the space of cars in our city and bring back space for the people, space for the environment, space for nature. A simple section that is representing how the space underneath it would be transformed in a urban park open for the people. We start also from different type of let's say the 200 meter are characterized from three different sections. The section of the green space that I will show you later, but this and the section of the activity. So the idea is to recreate squares, a small square, where different small objects are bringing function inside this new public infrastructure. During the last summer, we had the opportunity to start build like the Tesfeld of the Tesfeld. We are calling like that in some way. It's a kind of first action that we did in order to promote the project. And what it was interesting is from this picture is the strong action of removing hard surface of the parking and bring their hard surface on the parking, so that are basically defined from this concrete brick that we will reuse for the definition of the square. But in that moment, we had the idea to reuse the existing bricks to create furniture for people that can stop and stay there, surrounded from green and plants. And then second aspect is the thematic of the nature. Now, if it's nature, I mean, the thematic of the nature, of course, is to try to transform the mobility infrastructure or this linear park also in a kind of ecological infrastructure that can be seen as a space that can collect water for the plants, can create biodiversity, corners, rooms under the viaduct. So the first important idea was basically to try to collect the water coming from the rain along the two sides of the bike lane, but also we are studying together with the TU of Berlin how to clean the water coming from the viaduct using a phytoremediation system. So we use the clean water for the irrigation system of the plants, but also, of course, we studied deeply how to different kind of animals, insect, birds will colonize this space freely. So in relation with the study of the plants, with the flower, different small strategies of the condition of the soil, we try to include as much as possible also non-human inside our project. And these are other pictures coming from the action stag, where we basically start to plant new trees in the area. And this one, of course, it's there was small installation because it's not only a park, but it's a social space where people can meet there, can discover how the abandoned space can be transformed in something new, something beautiful for the future of the city of Berlin.
Thank you, Mirko. The next speakers will be Leon and Marie from Bürro. And we came across Leon and Marie because of their bachelor thesis on the topic of intersectional housing. So we were super happy to be able to do an interview with them for our platform Architektur kollektiv. And Bürro is an independent and uncommon place for exchange and experimentation in the field of intersectional feminist architecture and spatial practice. The two studied at Bauhaus University in Weimar and submitted their joint bachelor's thesis on the proposal of an intersectional residential building. Now they live and work in Berlin.
Thank you very much for the invitation and kind introduction. Yeah, I don't want to talk about us so much and rather jump direct in our talk. And by trying to formulate our general interest in our general interests, and this lies in an intersectional feminist perspective on living spaces, on living space. For example, the consideration of shared housing beyond the nuclear family, a feminist critique of existing structures, the communal organization of care work and stuff, and spaces for more bodies, and the awareness of multi-layered and partly intersection power structures in connection with housing.
At the beginning of our work on the project in intersectional house, we often talked about the norm and the deviation from the norm, but we quickly realized that the norm is a construct made out of many criteria. At this point, the term intersectionality came into play because people can either deviate from one of the norms and be disadvantaged, or a person can not fit to the norms in multiple ways, because categories such as gender, race, age, class, ability, and sexuality do interact. And we try to show this with this little drawing. In this case, the person is subject to multiple discriminations, which makes an intersectional approach necessary. This term, intersectional, was invented by the Black lawyer Kimberly Crenshaw in the year 1989. It is perhaps also worth mentioning that in order to make discrimination of free housing possible for all, the patriarchal and capitalist must be overcome. This initial starting point results in a collective of work called Patriarchal Cringe City.
No. And the existing building is at Hasenheide 226 in Leipzig. And it was built in 1937 as a house for workers' families. And the history of the typology of the workers' house exemplifies the connection between architecture and the manifestation of power structures. Because in the 19th century, factory owners began to bind workers to their companies by build their own housing estates in order to increase productivity. And at the same time, the workers' own four walls were supposed to find prosperity and contentment in order to ultimately prevent a revolt by the workers itself. And the history of the workers' house makes it clear that the provision and allocation of housing always followed the social, political, and economical goals of those who had the resources to provide housing. And yeah, this is to mention it's a floor plan from other time. Yeah. And furthermore, we noticed the extremely homogeneity of the apartment floor plans in the historical planning documents. And because each apartment has exactly the same room program, like a kitchen, living room, parents' bedroom, children's bedroom. And the use of the rooms so is very clearly specified and reflects the concept of the small family life. And the development of the building is designed to promote anonymity and isolation of families, giving built from the patriarchal family structures. And yeah, here you can see that this is like a syntax where you can see how splitted the living is. So this is like the part where the one family lives, this is where the other family lives, and it's all between there is a lot of space and it's not really possible to connect with the others. And yeah, then we had like an citat from Jane Dark. It's our cities are patriarchy carved in stone, brick, glass, and concrete, and we think it fits very good to our research. Yeah, but how we rebuild this now? For the intersectional apartment building, it was critical to plan economic interventions, since high cost is the biggest exclusionary criterion for access to housing. And to save costs, it was clear that we must rebuild as little as possible. And therefore, we avoided additions and focused on changes within the existing building volume. And to be able to redesign the floor plan in a cost-effective way, we analyzed the existing building in detail. We studied how the floor plans function and how they relate to the building structural design. And this allowed us to identify areas where we could achieve major changes through relative minor interventions. And a good example of this is the central corridor. The existing building originally consisted of 3 separate houses that formed one row, and through only 2 breakthroughs, we were able to create a corridor that connects all the 3 houses. The entire design process was characterized by a trade-off between economy and accessibility. And however, when it came to accessibility, we did not compromise at all. So especially with regard to the design of the kitchen and the bedrooms. Here you can see how we managed the breakthroughs and how we rebuilt the floor plan.
Okay, so dear Caro and Anastasia, thank you very much for the kind introduction. Caroline and I have known each other, as she said before, since our bachelor studies in Cologne. From there, I embarked on a little European journey, studying in Frankfurt, Munich, Vienna, and Porto, and we reunited in Cologne for the interview she called. My focus in architecture is on design, renovation, and heritage preservation, with a main focus on sustainability, which is playing a central role in my work. Buildings viewed from a preservation perspective, for example, offer us a range of clues about how they have managed to endure for a certain period, be considered socially relevant or worth preserving, and now constitute special and almost untouchable urban blocks in our cities. Sustainability is a term with various definitions and viewpoints. On one of the most important and well-known examples are the 17 Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations, which are also aligned with the Paris Climate Agreement, or the recommendations for circular building by the German Society for Sustainable Building. The cradle-to-cradle principle is one of the most common, describing the recycling of raw materials back to the usage of cycle. Around these very important examples, numerous initiatives and organizations also dedicated themselves to sustainability on a material or constructional level. A concrete example would be Concula, which is dedicated to urban mining, maintains a catalog of building components, and is committed to the professional reuse of old building materials. Another organization is Architects for Future, may you know them, which has formulated 10 demands for a construction turnaround. In this presentation, I would like to introduce you to further facets of sustainable planning, as I have personally applied them in my own projects. The first project in this is Complexity. It's a platform. In the spring or in the beginning of this year, as you all probably aware, a catastrophic earthquake with a magnitude of 7.8 occurred. According to the WHO, up to 23 million people were exposed to this earthquake. And in addition to nearly 60,000 fatalities, a total of 520 housing units collapsed. Cultural monuments, old towns, and several World Heritage sites no longer exist. This is not only a physical destruction, but also an identity crisis. After the initial shock and the sending of numerous donations, the actual use of which was often unclear and whether they reached where they were needed, reports of misappropriation by aid organizations began to surface in the media. It was disheartening because in a short time it became clear to me that there was no transparency, long-term planning, or a credible platform that reported objectively on the needs and offerings in a crisis situation and coordinated in an understandable and sustainable manner. And overnight we created Complexity. We formulated an intent statement and called on friends and others to join a network with their skills, primarily on a volunteer basis, to create an offering that could be accessed in crisis situations. At the same time, it should be possible to receive help in an uncomplicated manner. We had these two buttons on the website you can see here, like ready to act and need support. We committed to research and knowledge transfer. Complexity is based on 3 pillars that enable a sustainable planning culture and should be established under the concept of new transparency, which is a term we developed. This consists of a clear intent statement, our scope, offerings from open source and practical reference examples, and the so-called lab, a research branch that continuously work on an ephemeral urban development. Our goal was to generate a network of of planners worldwide who would present their reference projects for temporary accommodations in crisis situations. We had to realize early on that at the intersection of politics and architecture, there were no instruments that promoted building culture while ensuring an inclusive society. So we temporarily paused the dissemination of temporary structures and dedicated ourselves to creating a teaching concept for ephemeral urban structures that could be politically and architecturally effective in crisis situations.
So I think then it's the right time now to close the event. Thank you once again to the three speakers giving us three different insights into different topics, and for everyone, each of you who participated in this event and participated in the mirror board action and the breakout sessions. And of course, thank you again to Anastasia for being our co-host. It was a pleasure, and I hope we will do this again in the future.
Yes, thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for everyone who stayed until the end. But thank you, the speakers and attendees. And yeah, we'll send you all the links. And if you have any questions, you can email us back the invitations we sent. And yeah, looking forward to staying in touch and having more events like this together.